Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. I have a very special guest this time. My sister, Helen Shakina, is here. So it's Helen Dunlap, sorry. But in any case, we have a lovely conversation that we have planned for my listeners. So hopefully you will all enjoy it. Welcome, Helen.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
So tell everyone about your where you work, sort of like what the environment is and what the issue that you were having previously when we spoke last.
Yeah. Okay. So I work at one of the world's largest banks, and I have a global team of mainframe engineers. And we work very much in a production-like or operational environment where things are changing every day. It's very fluid environment. And it's based on whatever issues are happening that day. The issue I was having was with a very chatty employee who was very disruptive to others and very much so including myself, his manager. So shall I kind of go into some of the incidents that we had and where I came to you, Alice?
Yes. Share
Okay.
with everyone like sort of what was going on specifically.
Okay. So, as I said, we are a global team. So, I have a team in India and a team in the US. And every morning we have what's called a team huddle, every US morning. It starts at 8 a.m. every morning. And this is basically a sync up of what has happened over the India hours. And it's a daily turnover. They tell us, what's happened, what they're working on, what issues they're having. And I pretty much go through that. I set the priorities and the plans for the day for the US team. Everyone has an opportunity to talk in that meeting, ask questions, clarifying questions, anything they want to talk about. And it lasts a pretty good 30, 45 minutes and sometimes an hour. My team is a team of professionals. They're all engineers, and I do have some expectations of them. They know what they need to do. I just set the priority and the plans for the day. So every day, this call starts at 8 a.m. Many days I am taking this call while I'm in the car driving to work, and I am walking in sometimes on the call or just finishing up the call. This employee of mine, he's very young, he's fresh out of college, takes that opportunity every single day to come up to me while I'm walking in and just does a brain dump. It could be about his individual tasks that he is talking through. It could be about events that happened in his personal life the night before or the weekend. He just goes into a deep dive of whatever he just wants to talk about. And it may not even be the priority for the day. He does this every day. And I have like usually emails 200 deep, and we are walking into a fire. Usually every day something is on fire. But he doesn't have that sense of urgency or that we're under a time crunch or that there's pressure that we have to get things done. And usually I had to interrupt and say, okay, I need to log in, or okay, I need to get on a call, probably. I need to check my emails. I need to check my calendar. And I thought that he would eventually get the hint, but he never did. And he didn't just do this to me, he did this to everyone. He treated like our mornings like a social hour or a breakfast club of old men getting together and sipping our coffee and talking about. It was just very strange. It wasn't like he didn't even pick up the sense that we're all in it under pressure, but he just liked to casually talk and socialize every morning.
Wow.
So he did this regularly, and it became very disruptive, and it was bothering me because I didn't really know how to address it, and he wasn't getting my hints that I needed to sit down and log in. So he would do this throughout the day. It wasn't just the morning breakfast club. He treated every day like it was his social time. Again, he is freshly out of college, hasn't worked in corporate America before or any professional environment before. So I do chalk some of it up to lack of experience, but it was a bit excessive. So he would just walk up to people's desks and just start talking and just overshare stories. Um, and sometimes about work, but a lot of times not. It was just personal stories, and he just loved to chit chat. It came to a head one day. We were working on an issue, and or no, this at this point, this is where I talked to Alice, and I was like, "Hey, I have this guy. Like, he's just bothering me, and I don't know how to address it." So Alice gave me some actually really great tips, and she said, did you ever sit down with him and tell him? And I'm like, no, I just kind of tell him like, hey, I need to get to work or something. So she would tell me, or she told me like, you need to have that direct conversation with him, and start by, setting boundaries or ground rules, or even just rehashing my expectations of him.
Right.
So that is exactly what I did. So we have regularly scheduled one-on-ones. These are every other week. So I took that next opportunity as like, hey, I took your advice, and I didn't make it about him. I made it more like about what will help me. What will help me every day get my day started is that time to log in, to sit down, check my 200 emails, look at my calendar, and just please give me that space. I said that would help me greatly. He actually took that feedback very well. He received it very well. And he's like, okay, no problem. And so I was taking baby steps, actually. I couldn't unleash and say, hey, you talk too much or whatever. So he did curb that a bit. So that actually was great progress. And so that was one of the conversations. So since this has happened, it's been about a period of 6 months or so. So that was one first step. Another day we were, let's see, I'm trying to remember like what happened with the second discussion. And again, we have bi-weekly conversations already, or one-on-ones every day. He also has problems with interrupting people. Say we're deep into troubleshooting something. We could be looking at a giant mainframe screen, and he just walks in and starts talking about something. So he always overshares stories. So he did tell us he has ADHD. He also told us that he used to be deaf. I don't know how you used to be deaf. And I said, did you get healed? He's like, well, no, I just don't wear my aid anymore, but that's why I talk really loudly. So not only is he excessively chatty, he's very loud. He talks at a very high volume. And mind you, this is corporate America. We don't sit in cubicles. This is an open floor seating arrangement. I call it Google-esque, so they make it very comfy so people can collaborate. But my team, we're not very collaborative. Like everyone is an individual contributor per se. They're engineers, but we all work for the common goal. But he treats everyone as if this is a collaboration of everyone doing their work. So I see him taking a lot of people's times just to work on his own thing.
Right.
So in one of the one-on-ones, I wanted to remind him of my expectations. Again, I took your tips, like set my expectations, what I think is an engineer. I hired him fresh out of college. He had zero tech experience. He came to us with a degree in some medical field, and we thought, he was a great fit for helping us execute our daily jobs, and that he was very trainable. He was very ambitious and very excited and had this high energy, which we now know is actually part of the problem. Um, but I reset my expectations what an engineer is. Your job is to find and develop solutions for whatever problem we're having. Everyone works independently, so try and be more independent in when you're trying to solve a problem. I said, you are of course always welcome to ask me questions or get peer reviews from your fellow engineers, but try and be mindful of their time, right? Because everyone has a job to do. Um, and he again received that feedback very well. I heard him kind of, asking people, hey, can you help me with this when you have time? And he heeded that advice very well. Um, just a couple of weeks ago, we came into another situation. Something was burning down. I mean, things were in a very bad state. And at that time, he took the time to retell a story about his friend's wedding planning disaster. He told me, and then I heard him tell another engineer, and then I heard him tell a third person the whole long, drawn out, detailed story about his friend's wedding planning disaster. Mind you, we are in a time crunch, and the one issue we had was his application. For some reason, he didn't know we were working on an issue that he owned. It was his problem. Since everyone was waiting on him, I think everyone got irritated, so they just started doing it for him. We all got on a Zoom call. We're all in a group chat. They took over his server, logged in to do his work and troubleshoot this issue because he was so busy chatting. He still did not realize it until it was lunchtime. He left and went to lunch. We're all on a Zoom call. He never even knew. At this point, I recognized the signs of irritation from the team. So when he came back, at that point, I did decide to give him, again, direct feedback with that example, like, hey, we're working on an issue. Do you know that this is your app? And he was very confused and did not know what was going on. So I did ask him, let's get back to work right now. We'll finish this conversation tomorrow. So the next day, I talked to him about ownership and my expectations for ownership. And I never talked to him in a way that was addressing or criticizing his personality or his character. I never said he talked too much or he's not paying attention or anything like that. It was more about setting expectations and boundaries and hey, when we're working on an issue and this is a priority, let's make sure we're focusing on that issue. He seemed to take that feedback well because for the rest of that day that we talked about, we worked on that issue and he stepped right in and he took it. He just didn't even realize what was happening. However, the next day he came in a very unusual state. He was wearing earbuds and he didn't say a word to anyone. He walked in and waved hello to all of us. He didn't even say hi. And it was like that for the entire morning. Obviously something was wrong and it was almost like he was pouting, but I almost asked him if everything was okay, but I changed my mind and I took the opportunity to let him feel what is a normal working environment. It's quiet. It's almost like a library environment. You hear people clacking on their keyboard. You hear people on Zoom meetings, but talking at a normal decibel level.
Right.
People are having conversations on the floor. It's all work. Everyone is working. Any excitement is about the work that we're doing. We're not chatting about someone's wedding anniversary or something like that. We are working. So I let that carry on for the day. And I had people pinging me in a chat saying, oh my gosh, it's so peaceful. I love this. And someone else said, did they turn up the white noise in here because I can concentrate and there's no loud talking. So everyone noticed that he was not talking. But the next day it was more like normal. So it lasted one day, but I will say there is progress. It's baby steps, but it's progress. And it was due to the tips that you gave me because I did not know how to address it or how to even talk about it.
Right.
Or how to even approach it. Like, how do I tell someone to stop talking or whatever? But I didn't have to do that. I just basically reminded him or shared again, reshared my expectations of him in this job, and to be mindful of others' time. Like, don't just take their time. Like, hey, can you, when you need someone's time, can you ask them if they have time first? Like, be mindful of their work style. Some people need time to concentrate. I mean, they're coding, right? Like, they
Right.
need to concentrate. So they may need that time to focus and concentrate. So just ask before you go right into the conversation. And I have heard him doing it. So that's a good step in the right direction.
That's awesome. So I'm curious that morning when his app was the one that needed work and he spent the whole morning talking about disastrous wedding planning. Why didn't anyone pull him over and say, "Hey, dude, like this is yours. Like you need to get over here and work on this"?
They actually did, except it was more, I think it was too subtle for him.
Oh, really?
They would be like, "Are you guys going to get on this Zoom?" That's how they would say it off the call. They're like, "Are you guys going to get on Zoom?" I'm like, "I don't need to, but whoever's working on the issue." So I didn't think I needed to spell it out for him, but I did. I did
Oh,
need to spell it out for him. He wasn't getting the clue, but he's in the chat as well where we're troubleshooting his app, and we
right.
keep talking about his app and his, his mainframe environment, the components of his application. He wasn't getting the clues. It's because he was not paying attention. So he needed that direct spoon feed.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
what's interesting is that I coach a lot of people at work, and I one of the things that I noticed that is a recurring problem is that people think they have communicated something and the other person has not received the message, like it's not going through. And people always say, "Well, I let them know, but I don't know why they're not changing things or why aren't they changing their behavior?" And then when I actually ask specifically, like, "What did you say?" or "How did it go?" It turns out it was like a hint,
Yeah.
right? And so we just need to understand because people communicate differently.
Yeah.
Sometimes people cannot read a hint.
That is so true. And that's what I learned from you because I kept dropping hints and he wasn't getting the hint. And he would just have no sense of what was happening around him. So I realized like he needs that direct. I hate to keep saying spoon feeding, but that's how I feel like it, sometimes, I have to spoon feed him very specifically. These are your tasks for the day. So I did have to adjust to his style of communicating or listening. He doesn't get hints.
Right.
So that was very actually, I realize that everyone is different. You can't even subtly tell someone something, not just dropping hints, but being subtle. You have to be more direct.
And I think it's good too, like you're a manager. And so for managers who are listening to this, I think it's like when you have your one-on-ones and you're having the direct feedback, it's always good just to start off like level set and say, by the way, if I have to give you feedback, like how can you hear it? Right? Because sometimes direct feedback, like you're giving him, which works for other people, they might get defensive and then
Yep.
they can't hear it because now
Yep.
they're defensive, right? Some people need subtler feedback, some people need more direct. So it's a really good practice when you are managing multiple people to ask them, by the way, if I have to give you feedback, what is the best way for you to receive my messaging? Is it direct? Is it indirect? Is it via emails or what have you? Because sometimes people say, well, I would prefer it in written so I can go back to it and read it multiple times and process it over the day and that sort of thing. So I think definitely it's good to check in with people to see how they best receive feedback because a lot of times the conflicts arise because one person's communication style is not matching someone else's communication style. And then there's like communication that gets dropped,
And
right?
I forgot you did tell me to do that, and I did do that. So I asked him in a way was what is your learning style? Like, how do you learn best? I didn't, I was indirect, indirectly asking him, how do you receive feedback? And he said, reading it. So I took that, I heeded that, even though I can't just type our one-on-ones, obviously,
Right.
but I capture notes from our one-on-one. I share them with him. And one day when he was committing an offense, I'll say I used that moment to ping him in chat and I gave him that example. I've also heard about giving people immediate feedback. So that morning he was taking like 2 hours of someone's time. It was ridiculous. And he already took an
Just
hour of mine.
chatting, like social hour, kind of 2 hour
No,
chatting.
it was actually working on something, but this is not something that I expect the engineers to rely heavily on each other to go through the thought process. He likes to overshare his thought process. And maybe it's because he's green or he has low confidence, but he likes to talk everything through. And we sit in open areas, so our desks we're right in touching distance of each other. He just leans over and just talks openly, like, so I was going to do this, and he's very loud so everyone hears it. And so I took that moment to ping him in chat and say, hey, I noticed that you've been talking about this for 2 hours. See if you can work on it by yourself. Such and such has other work to do. Like, remember to be mindful. So I took the moment to use that example, but I did ping it to him and I worded it. It took me a while to word it very carefully because, again, I don't want him to feel attacked
Right.
or become defensive or think that he can't talk. I don't want him to shut him down. I don't want to discourage him. So I was very careful in how I worded it. And again, he received it seemingly well. He immediately is like, oh, okay, no problem. He chimed back and responded very nice. Like, okay, thank you. He was actually thanking me. So I did take your advice and asked him how he learned best.
That's
And that was
awesome.
through reading. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes like I hear what you're saying where you don't want him to feel like he's getting shut down. So a good exercise one day, if it comes up, is to say, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to do this exercise for me. I want you to go out there and not talk, but I want you to like notice, like listen to like what you hear when you're not talking. Like what do you hear what everyone else is doing? And then come back and let me know, what did you observe? Right?
Okay.
Because then his awareness becomes different. It's not about the thoughts in his head. Because a lot of times people have so many thoughts, especially if you've got ADHD, you can have a lot of different thoughts. And the thoughts make it very difficult to notice and observe what's going on outside of your thoughts because it's so loud in your head. Right? So at least to be able to ask him to focus for an hour of work time, say, I want you to like focus consciously on like what you hear when you are working and you are not talking. What are you hearing other people do or not do? And what does that sound like? Because then that gives him sort of a framework to say, oh, this is normal versus, oh, my boss is just trying to shut me down. You want to level set by saying, notice what is normal. I want you to pay attention. That is normal. And please notice it. Because the day that he came in, you said he had earbuds in.
Yeah.
So he may not still have noticed. Everyone else is like, wow, it's so quiet. I can focus. I can work. And he may not have noticed that because he had music or podcasts or who knows what was going on. And so he still may not realize what normal sounds like in the work environment.
I will do that. And I thought that he may not have heard it. And just because I notice it, and you just made a good point, like it may be very loud in his head.
Yep.
Like he has all this stuff going on. He doesn't even recognize it unless I specifically ask him. I did give him feedback though about, I hear him doing things. He's taking my advice, like asking people if they have time before he just dives into the conversation. So I did give him feedback on that. So I will follow up this last conversation with that, like asking him to observe the environment because I wanted him to hear what was normal. Like this is baseline. This
Yeah.
is it. But
Right.
you're right. He probably didn't even notice it.
Right, because he was hiding behind the earbuds.
And pouting. He was very pouty that day, which is fine. I wanted him to, yeah. So me wanting him to recognize that what was normal environment, he probably didn't even.
It just went right past him.
Yeah,
Right?
he didn't even realize it. Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's great to give him positive feedback as well.
Yeah.
To say, by the way, I told you this, this, and this, and you totally have changed your behavior, and I so appreciate it. And also to say your teammates also appreciate it because people have come to me telling me how much they appreciate your behavioral change. Right? Because
I'll think about that because I don't want him to think that we're all talking about him. It's like you have to. It's a very delicate situation, so it's like I'm handling it with gloves on, kid gloves on, because I feel it's very sensitive to say, hey, you talk too much and you bother people.
Right, right. But you can say, like, people have come to me to say, like, how they appreciate, like, some of the changes that you've made, so that
Okay.
if they're talking about him behind his back, it's positive,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
To say, hey, people have said they really appreciate you. They've been talking about how great it is that you've adjusted your behavior. So make it so that whatever they're saying behind his back is positive.
Okay. Yeah.
And then that way he will feel good about it, and it will encourage him to continue to improve,
Yes.
because it sounds like it is just a learning curve. It's a very steep learning curve, because he probably came from a place where, as you know, my son has ADHD, and he was very disruptive at school. And school is just never a good place for him. Zoom is great because he can mute himself and then he can talk on a different Discord or whatever. But like in class, he was like what you're talking about. Very, very disruptive, talking all the time. And the teachers were like, get out of my classroom. I cannot stand you being here. And mainly, yeah, so it's hard for him. It was very difficult for him to like tone down his talking.
Yeah.
Right. And
And
so,
I did recognize him for that and appreciate it because I could tell he was trying, even though he's chomping at the bit to talk, 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 talk. But he does have, some unmanaged ADHD. Maybe it's never been addressed. And I did approach it as if it is for his professional growth and development. And I did frame it that way. Like, I know you've not worked in an office before and you've not worked really at all before. I mean, he talks about middle school. That's how young he is. Like, yeah, when I was in middle school, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So he tells us stories about middle school and I'm like, geez, it's like talking to my child at work, except my son doesn't even talk that much. But yeah, so I did frame it in a sense. It's for his growth, and this good things will come out of these conversations. So I hope he is taking it like that.
yeah. And one of the things that did help Vladdy, my son, is putting music on. And so he goes to class, he does whatever he does, and he always has music, because then he can sort of like tone down the noise in his head, because he can just focus on the music and focus on what he's doing. So it's also about trying to figure out, how to manage the ADHD, right? Because typically in a school setting, ADHD is never very good. But once you
Yeah.
become an adult, usually it just means you're extremely brilliant and you can do a lot of brilliant things, right? It's just a different way of thinking. But a lot of times, yes, you have to learn like the skills to manage that so that you can function in whatever environment you're in. And so maybe even having a discussion about that to say, what are some ways that you've learned that are helpful for you? And then maybe have him implement things that can work at work, right? I don't know what kind of work he does, but it sounds like the day that he wore the earbuds maybe was really great. So maybe it's like something like that where he can try to focus by having something playing, right? Because that's what Vladdy does as well. He plays music and then he can like get into the groove and he can do his work very, very well because he's got music. But without the music, he's like all over the place, looking at this, looking at that, and he also does a lot of things as well where he's like, oh, I close all the tabs. He said, because I'm very well aware that if I have tabs open, I'm going to be switching back and forth between multiple tabs. So he'll close everything. So he has certain things that he's learned, coping mechanisms, so that he can focus. And so it sounds like your employee just might need some of those, like, tools so that he can function without being disruptive to other people. Because it sounds like he hasn't managed or he hasn't figured out how to manage his own
Yep.
disruptiveness. Right?
Correct. I think so. And I think he is learning. So you mentioned the earbuds and Vladdy listening to music to kind of hone in his focus. So that day he came in with his earbuds at around the same time. One of his fellow employee bought a new headset and he shared it with her. He's like, hey guys, I bought a new headset. These are awesome. Like, it's completely noise canceling and I can focus. And he shared this on the floor. And I was like, ooh, good one. He's like, so he told me in private, so if he starts talking, I'm just going to put on my headphones, like just to kind of clue him into like, I'm going to start working now. And this kid started wearing earbuds as well. And that's when he's being quiet. So I may take the opportunity to ask him what he's listening to, maybe in a one-on-one, not on the floor, because once you open
Right.
that can of worms, he won't be quiet. So maybe I'll take it in a one-on-one and ask him, if that's helping him focus, like just trying to prod him into his own discovery of what helps him focus.
Right.
And see where that goes. Because he also tells us he's very open. I'm going to my therapy session, which no one wants to ask what he's taking therapy for, but he does it at work. He's like, I'm going to my video conference therapy session. I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. Good luck.
And there also might be ways where your team can have subtle, like visible clues, kind of like you said, where somebody's wearing like
Yeah.
headphones to alert someone else. It might not be just him, but others to like, please don't disturb me, right?
Yeah.
I'm working. And so different things, even if it's like a do not disturb sign.
We did actually have that conversation. So all the rest of us said, we're all going to do this. We're going to follow suit. So when we need like private time, we haven't talked about it with this kid, but I think he's getting the clue. Maybe we all think our hints are giving him a clue, but maybe they're not. But if we're all on headphones, you can't easily just start talking to us.
Right. Right.
So we'll
So
see.
I guess, yeah. So you can see if he picks up on a hint. If he doesn't pick up on the hint, then you can just very directly say, by the way, if people are on headsets, it means that they don't want anyone disturbing them.
Yeah.
So you need to be mindful of that, and please don't disturb someone if they have headsets on, unless it's like absolutely urgent and necessary. Other than that, don't disturb people if they're on headsets, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really good visible clue.
Yeah.
For people who are not aware of that. So
yeah.
Oh, well, good. I'm
Definitely.
glad you're slowly getting some, progress here.
Yes, some progress. Slow
Yeah.
but sure. It is definitely slow but sure. So it's
Yeah.
been very helpful. I really did not know how to address it. And I started Googling ADHD. I mean, I was kind of going down the wrong path, but whatever. You kind of set me straight, like just have that direct conversation and setting your own expectations. It wasn't really me addressing him as a person like you talk too much. It's more about what I expect. And he respected that. And
I think
it's
that's
working.
a great way to frame things, right?
Yeah.
To say, hey, by the way, well, when you come to work, this is what I expect, or this is
Yep.
what I need.
Yep.
Right. And I think that
Yes.
is a wonderful way for other people who are listening to the podcast. If you are having trouble and you need to address something that is a sensitive matter, to first of all, you want to set up a meeting time. So you have the automatic one-to-one check-ins.
Yes. Yes.
But for those people who don't, you want to just set something up and say, hey, by the way, there's some things I want to go over with you. Is there a good time for us to meet? Because you never want to just show up and be like, hey, by the way, like, can you stop doing this? Because it will not get received well. So set up a time, make sure it's in a private area where other people can't overhear the feedback.
Yep.
And then frame things like you said. Please, like for me, if you can do this is my expectation. This is how I expect things to go. So I think that's a wonderful way that you did it, because then it's much easier to accept it. And it's funny because in a very similar way, I coach people when they call me for mediation. They say, hey, I don't know how am I going to convince the other person to get mediation because I want mediation, and they might just say no. And the tip I always give them is I say, frame it so that you are the one who needs it.
Yes.
That you say, in order for me to be present and be able to hear you properly, like I need the mediator, as opposed to I want a mediator because I'm afraid that you're going to yell at me, and I don't want you to yell at me, so I want a mediator. So because if you frame it that way, the other person is going to obviously get upset.
Yes.
It's much easier to buy the idea of mediation if you say, I'm the one that has trouble hearing you. I'm the one that has trouble sort of like not getting upset. And so it would be helpful for the conversation if we have a mediator for me. And people are always like, oh, okay, I can do that. And so that's how I, offer the advice to frame things exactly what you did, which is, this is what I need.
Yeah, I think if you start talking about what they need, they're gonna defenses go up, and they're not listening. And exactly, you hit it on nail on the head. You say it's about for yourself. Yep. And it somehow keeps the walls down, ears open, and they receive it. They actually hear it.
It's like
so if for anyone with problem employees, make it about how it will help you, what you need, what your expectations are. That made it so much easier. It
awesome.
Worked wonders, actually.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And this was so much fun. And listeners, thank you for joining the two sisters, having a little chat. And hopefully you enjoyed my sister's story at her work. And until next time, everyone, have a good one.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.